"Your shoe is untied." I said that to my dad before promptly falling down a 20-foot cliff into the underbrush. Broken arm, fractured skull, ruptured kidney. Woke up 2 weeks later to my dad saying thanks for letting him know his shoe was untied as he could have tripped. You know your dad spent those entire 2 weeks fantasizing about saying that to you when you finally woke up. If that ain't a dad through and through. Nothing, blacked out. But my thoughts before that was happening was something like I shouldn't have gone out today, body was going into shock and heart was slowing down really fast, I got knocked unconscious and blacked out from a car accident and it was nothing, like you said. Just darkness overwhelming me immediately. I woke up gasping for air and wondering how the police and ambulance knew the accident was going to happen. I had been out long enough for them to arrive and start rending to some of us, but I thought they were waiting for us. My heart stopped beating for 7 seconds while I was eating dinner in my hospital bed waiting to be discharged. I realized I was going to pass out and put my arm across my plate so I wouldn't fall face first into it. All I could think of was this is gonna make a mess. Glad they took their time with the paperwork. Ended up walking out of there 7 days later with a pacemaker at the age of 46. The elderly mother of a friend of mine had a heart attack. But she did great in the hospital. So much so that the family urged my friend to go away on his business trip because she was discharging that same day. They were literally wheeling her to the car when she had another heart attack and died instantly. My friend still hasn't forgiven himself for going in that trip. He was on the plane when she died and the first thing he heard after he landed was the voicemail about her passing. I choke a lot. Sometimes on my spit. I told my husband if I die by choking on my own spit I want that put in my obituary and headstone. It's so embarrassing and that will be my last parting gift. Being awkward. I had the Heimlich done on me while I was eating Doritos and it felt like my body was fighting the Heimlich action. They squeezed and I pushed out. I would clear my airway a little and then it would close again. It was so scary trying my hardest to breathe and I just couldn't. I noticed I breathed through my mouth a lot and that's probably the main culprit of my choking episodes. I was at a high school reunion talking with a small circle of people. One woman got my name totally wrong, she kept calling me Linda, but I didn't bother to correct her. Suddenly I started choking on a piece of food and this woman got concerned and kept saying, "Linda, are you okay?" I couldn't talk but I remember thinking, shit. This is how I die? Surrounded by people who think I'm Linda? I was in the process of being electrocuted, having been working all day atop a scissors lift. The electricians had left a 277-volt line live and while I was standing and reaching while running the last low voltage run of the job, I contacted their line. I saw the white light at the end of the tunnel. All I knew was throbbing and 60-cycle noise and the white light. My last thought was I wonder if I can tell my knees to unlock? Obviously they did, since I am here typing this. Severe electrical burns, still here living the life. As a teenager, I decided at one point to stick a paperclip in the end of one of those light-up candles you place in the windows for Christmas. I remember a blue spark popping out and how I could actually feel the electricity moving from my hand and up my arm. Luckily it didn't get farther than my shoulder, but my heart was kept beating extremely fast for a good 30 minutes or so. So that jolt really stays with your system for a while. Very cautious around electricity now. A friend of mine was wrecking out a warehouse, standing in 6 inches of water, cut into a supposedly dead 480-277 circuit feeding the 277-volt lights. Lights which were supposedly 120 volts and supposedly the only thing energized. After the boom, he stood in the new, complete darkness and said he thought, well, I guess this is what it's like to be dead. And he thought it wasn't too bad, kind of peaceful actually, then somebody else there said shit, what the fuck? And he thought, well, if I ain't dead, maybe I can breathe. He said he tried inhaling and it worked, and he exhaled and it worked too. Then he thought, maybe I ain't dead, let me try something else and he tried moving an arm or something, and by that time someone had opened a door letting some light in, and he finally concluded well, I guess I ain't dead. He tells the story hilariously. Imagine Delmer from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou saying well, I guess. Had a stroke last year and was taken to the ER by my brother. The last thing I remember was asking him to take a picture of me with his phone as I must look terrible. After I was admitted, I didn't remember anything other than dreams until late October, and days after I was admitted, when everything was a blank, they induced a coma so that my brain swelling would go down, And I was critical, so I presume I was pretty close to dying then. Shit, wasn't the car that hit me white? As I'm looking down at a car underneath me. I'd been hit hard enough I bounced up over the car that hit me and had enough air time to clear the second one. Props to the driver of the third vehicle, he must have stood on the damned brakes the moment he saw me because he brought the cement truck to a stop before it got to me. Second time I was hit by a car as a pedestrian. I'm now much more careful crossing streets. Not that it's helped much, I seem to have a car magnet in my ass. I witnessed a pedestrian get hit once. He flew over the car and cracked his head on the asphalt. I never found out if he made it, but the first car to arrive was a police officer on his way to work. Ambulance and fire truck were all on the scene in less than 5 minutes. Me and another guy stood out there stopping traffic and basically stood in the road so the poor fellow wouldn't get run over. Had drivers honking at us. I was too busy talking to the guy that got hit, trying to keep him calm I guess. The other guy stopping traffic stood there flipping the bird at the cars that were honking. I felt bad for the guy that got hit. I think he was suicidal because there were no other cars in the area and if he had waited 5 seconds he would have made it across the street. I also felt bad for the guy that hit him. Some poor college kid that was just minding his own business. He was not on a cell phone or doing anything out of the ordinary. Was on a road trip with my best friend, middle of the night, middle of nowhere. He was watching a movie on a little shit DVD player. I was going about 90 miles per hour. As I'm passing a semi his blinkers come on, so I consider falling back to not get merged into, but I'm young and stupid so I keep on the gas to get out of his way. I'm almost past him when I start to fishtail. Black ice. Let off the gas, hold the wheel straight, and the car's simply no longer in my control. As the car starts to spin, I very calmly turn to my friend, look him in the eyes, and tell him in a conversational tone, make sure your seatbelt's fastened, we're about to crash. The signal on the semi was probably his hazards, in retrospect. We luckily just spun out and wound up in the ditch on the far side of the road facing the wrong way, across 4 lanes of traffic in the pitch dark. So lucky. Was in a pretty severe car crash in my mid-teens. We got pwned by a big Ford van coming home from school one afternoon. I could have swore our light was green but witnesses said my friend went though a red. I remember looking over and seeing the van and thinking I pretty much resigned immediately to what was about to happen. I was sitting in the front passenger seat holding onto the little handle above the door. The window blew out and I had hundreds of little cuts on my arm, neck and face. It looked like rats had been chewing at me and I had a couple bits of glass in my hand. The passenger side door crushed in far enough to hit me and left fabric imprint all down my side, completely knocked the wind out of me, and cracked 2 ribs. After I caught my breath I had to crawl out of the driver's side, my hand bleeding all over the place, but was so amped up on adrenaline I hardly noticed any pain. The next day I could hardly move, I was so sore. Almost my whole right side was bruised. It hurt to breathe too deeply. My friend's mom showed me pictures of the car. It was really surprising I got off as well as I did.